You're listening to the Outdoors Group podcast. This podcast is a call to arms to get children and young people outside again. It's your one-stop shop for all things outdoor, child, young person and education related. Thanks for tuning in. In this episode, we are absolutely delighted to be joined once again by our very own Nick Murphy. Last time he came to talk to us about spoon carving, but this time he's here with his work cap on to talk to us about forest school. We'll be discussing exactly what forest school is, how it looks for us, how it's changed over the years and why it's such a beneficial thing for children and young people of all ages. Thanks for joining us, Nick, particularly as this is going out on National Forest School Day.
You're very welcome and lovely to have you here.
Let's start by explaining in a nutshell exactly what forest school is.
Okay, so let's go forest school in the UK. So forest school in the UK started off in the kind of early 90s. I suppose like before that, let's go back further.
Let's skip a question and go right back to the origins.
Well, let's not. So what I do know, so forest school is a concept that's been kind of borrowed from, adapted from the sort of Scandinavian approach to particularly like early years, and they're very good at that sort of thing. They're very good at outdoorsy, and I think like they're also part of the kind of countries that don't necessarily start giving like formal education as we do so early. You know,
I think they wait till 7.
Yeah, and coincidentally or not, I think like there are studies that have been done to show that the kind of general well-being and happiness rates of a lot of their youngsters are
much higher.
Yeah. And maybe that's just because they're allowed to play more. But anyway, yeah. I think like during Britain, especially since like the sort of national curriculum became a thing, and sort of schooling became more about like outcomes and sort of box ticking
and league tables.
Yeah, I think there was a certain amount of I was going to say discontent, but maybe not discontent, just awareness that wasn't the only thing by which we should be measuring progress and sort of what it is to be a successful like all-round person, and so yeah, I guess that there's been a sort of alternative kind of movement, I suppose, towards something that wasn't about academic outcomes. Which the curriculum, the national curriculum, and the way that schooling worked was not really taking into account, and you know, through movements like I suppose like the Scouts, the kind of emphasis on being active outdoors and getting benefit away from that academic side of things. People have been aware of it for quite a long time. In the early 90s, I think it was 93 maybe, a group of folks from Bridgewater College went out to Denmark, and they were looking at their early years system, and they rocked up to find that they were a lot more outdoorsy. There's a word for it which I can't remember, maybe I can find it quickly. But the emphasis was on being outdoors, being a lot more learner-led. Oh, here we go, the open-air culture, Friluftsliv. Don't know if that's how you pronounce it. But it's kind of like a way of, more of something that's built into their early years provision. And they were just like blown away by it, and the kids seemed confident. They were being given a lot more freedom in their choice of what they wanted to do on any given day, and the emphasis was more on like observation of the individual and what the individual needed. And so they came back all full of inspiration. I've just realised I got last night's bolognese on my shoe. and they set up their own little forest school, and
In Somerset?
and I believe it was for, like, they were using it within the college as
For early years, childcare?
Yeah, for childcare. And with like more passion or just a renewed passion for bringing the outdoors and a more kind of learner-focused approach to their practice, they carried on, and people began to take note, and it's sort of slowly built. And then I think it was the early 2000s, there was enough people that were starting to use this approach, and they all got together, and a forest school association was formed to, I suppose, to sort of set industry standard,
Share best practice and things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And part of that, they started to sort of dissect a bit, what is it we're doing here, and what is forest school, what is it now that we've brought it back here, and how should it be, how should we guide it, and what should we support people with. And it became since then it's sort of grown, and it's gone from something that was quite an alternative provision to something that is now, I think, a fairly well-known and recognised approach to developing kids, but not in the sense that the curriculum develops kids.
No.
It's not about kind of skinning kids up to what the country's economic needs are or anything. It's about the needs of the children to be in a sort of more holistic approach, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we have 6 key principles of forest school that have been discussed, and we, as a company, and certainly my approach to forest school, does take these into account. But what I like about them, and what I like about forest school as a whole, is that there's a lot of scope for people to put their own sort of twist on it. It's not prescriptive, really, and there's room to kind of make it work within your own settings, and within your own ways of working as an individual. So do you want to know what the key principles are?
Give us the key principles.
Okay, I'm going to keep it in a nutshell, because they're underneath these principles there's sort of a lot of thought that's gone into it. So we have, forest school should be a long-term process. So where you will have folks that certainly in the past, and we've experienced this with some bookings that we've had, particularly in our early days, take a unnamed school, for example, who want to show that they are taking children's wellbeing into account, and how to do that. Let's do forest school, because forest school is about the individual, and it's outdoors, it's healthy, and so they say, we are doing forest school, and then they book them in for a session, and that's all they get. That's not really forest school, that's an outdoor experience.
Yeah, that's a day in the woods.
Yeah. So forest school should be more than that. It should be about a reasonable duration where kids are outdoors and they experience different weathers, different seasons, and they have a chance to spend a reasonable amount of time to make something for themselves out of forest school.
Would you also say the long-term thing lends itself to that kind of building a, not necessarily a friendship group, but if they're with the same kids long-term, there's that element of it as well? Yeah,
I think beneath everything that that certainly we've done in the outdoors group, I think back to, I've been with the company 10 years now, and we're sat in Exmouth Forest School, which was the first site that I set up, and I blooming love it here. What I think about when I'm sat here talking to you, thinking about forest school as we've done it, is it's all about community. The first sessions we ever ran here was a toddler group, and I was petrified, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and very quickly realised that it wasn't about me. It was about the people that come along here, and they make of it what they will, guided by me, sort of facilitated by me, I suppose, and But what they do is they form a community, and that community then interacts, and they bring benefits to the sessions that over a long-term process, you end up getting to know everyone and working out what people are trying to get out of it, and also standing back and having a thought process of what do you think people need to get out of it. So it's a very much two-way thing. It takes place in a natural environment, so we're very lucky here to have, and across all of our forest school sites, we've got some beautiful sites. It should take place outdoors, preferably in a forest, funnily enough, but that's not always possible, and so people have taken the ethos of forest school and they've put it in school playgrounds, they've put it in sort of inner city parks.
Where they might have just a handful of trees.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not all about the trees, but I've certainly found I've done so many sessions at different settings. I've done sessions at preschools where they have just a little patch of grass outside their classroom, and there's great benefit to that still, but seeing the difference of kids when they're in the majesty of like a beautiful woodland, that in terms of, you know, if you're trying to help inspire children, nature is very good at inspiring children, and to do that with a kind of decent effect, having a setting like this where you've got all the trees, they're big, they're massive. Like imagine being a little kid and coming in here and just looking up, and all of a sudden your world around you is massive and you're quite small, but within it there's loads of little things that you can lift up, rocks and stumps, and there's always something to find, and that's before you've put other people in the mix. And so with that comes all of the other factors that come with being outdoors. You've got the weather, it's a very sensory rich environment, isn't it?
But also quite a calming environment as well.
100%,
Like it's not overwhelming, you don't have fluorescent lights or loud bells or...
There's, lots of research out there about the benefits of being outdoors. There's lots of research specifically about being around trees. What is it?
Shirin...
is that the Japanese forest bathing thing? Like, it just bemuses me that we're at a point where there's... it's prescribed. Like, you're not doing too well, mate. Go and get yourself some forest bathing, and you'll find yourself a little bit happier. And I know this for, like, personally as well. Like when I moved into a more management role and moved away from session delivery, especially at a time through when COVID was going on, I was kind of removed from the woodland to a certain degree, and I didn't do too well. Like, I wasn't very, very happy at all. And now, with hindsight, which is a flipping wonderful thing, isn't it? I now prescribe myself woodland time, because working within my schedule, I need to know that I'm around the woods and the trees and the groups that are in the woods to keep my own cup filled, Forest school, we're on to what we're on to point 3. So forest school is about it's about a holistic approach to development. It's not about teaching kids stuff. It's about developing all aspects of any given individual or group. And so, you're thinking you want to teach them skills, but also what skills do the children want to? Well, I say children, but anyone who comes to forest school, what skills do they want to know? This isn't about me or anyone leading it. It's about them. So what do they want to get out of it? It's about keeping active. It's about building emotional intelligence. It's about, like I said, the community, how we treat each other. There's a lot that goes into, there's a lot that comes out of any session, and a lot of the time I can't plan that. Sometimes you come in with ideas of things to do. I don't know, to take, let's go firelighting, for example. You come in, you think, it's going to be great. I've got all these alternative ways of getting fires going. We're going to do it with King Alfred's cakes, and they're going to have little bushcrafty tinder bundles in their hands, and they're going to be amazed. And quickly, maybe, you realise that, do you know what, they don't seem that interested, but they seem to be they're wanting to do something else. They might have found a bug and they want to go and build a village for a bug, and you think, well, my idea is this, and But it doesn't matter what your idea is. Like, that's not holistically developing them.
Yeah.
They're not got any freedom and choice in that. So it's about running with what the people want to do.
One of our office staff came along to holiday clubs recently, and I asked her what she thought, and she said that she said it made her really reconsider what she thought time with children should be. And she said, I was really surprised by how much freedom they had and how it was, if they didn't want to do the activity, they didn't do the activity. And she said she's teaches other classes to kids where it's like, right, 11 o'clock do this, 11:30 do this. And she said it was like a massive eye-opener to be like, oh, this is totally different. I think what we've had this discussion with our team a lot is how do you best facilitate that? And what we've come down to, and again, this is our take on it, and is that it's freedom within a structure. Yeah. Like, people need like to know where they are. Like, they're not to get familiarity with what's going on, and on some level, but this goes for some of our learners more than others, but like to be able to predict what their day looks like. Yeah. But then that's more about a rhythm than a routine, right? Yeah. Like a loose kind of like, we'll know what to expect. But being able to kind of hand over the control of someone's learning and someone's development to the person themselves is something that goes against what, like we were talking about earlier, the national curriculum, the schooling system is, because that's not what they're geared up to do. It's not what their intention is, and some teachers, we have in the woods, particularly in the earlier days, and you could see them struggle with that lack of control. But being able to stand back and then observe what they're doing with their time, particularly when they're on their own time, and particularly when they're playing, is an amazing thing. They talk about the triangle of trust, don't they? I can't remember who coined that phrase, someone from the FSA, and they were like, in the triangle of trust is the environment, the facilitator, and then the attendee, and it was like, it works always. You've got to trust them to know what they need from the session. It's not the circle of trust from Meet the Fockers. No. Okay. Much more wholesome, it's a really interesting concept, and it's interesting to see how people approach that, and also on the kids side of it is what you see in them when you give them that level of responsibility over their own journey. And sometimes they teach you stuff you don't know. 100%, and that's a thing I love about Forest School, is I don't need to know everything, because if I don't, then I can then embark on that learning journey with them, and that brings us as equals. And I can be a teacher, a class teacher. I haven't got the style for it. I haven't got the willingness to stick to structure. I like to be able to talk to the kids like they're my mates, which comes with challenges sometimes. Because you do need to be the grown-up. You need to sometimes be the authority. And if there is an altercation, you've still got to step in and say it's not appropriate to absolutely hit him with a stick. But again, through the community side of it, once you've built that relationship, then you've got permission. You've gained permission to help them. When they need it. And also, if you're not imposing loads and loads of rules and boundaries that are unnecessary, if you do then kind of take that level of authority, they'll be like, oh, actually, this matters because we get loads more freedom here. And the rules we have are all around being safe and kind. I like how Claire at Totnes, have you heard her 3? She just says the 3 rules only 3 rules are look after yourself, look after each other, look after the woods. And I was like, amazing? I like that. Just everything in 3 simple things. So. And anything that goes against any of those will be very easy to decipher what is happening that goes against those things. And that's fine. Like, people are here. Like, kids are, they're learning. We're all learning, and we shouldn't hold them to standards that we don't keep ourselves. Because the look after yourself one, even that could be as simple as it's really, really hot and I haven't had a drink in an hour, so remember to go and have a drink and hydrate your body. And that's a really important life skill as well, not to have someone over you going, have you had a drink, have you had a drink? Obviously we do make sure everyone's hydrated. But all of the rules as well should have, there should be a reason, and you should be able to explain the reason. Explain that, otherwise why would anyone listen to it? So, but again, that comes into the community, and we
we agree on these rules. That often, like especially for new groups, kids will create their own rules, and they always fall exactly in line with with the rules that you would put in place.
Yeah.
Once you've got over the sort of silliness that comes out of it first, like it's always like, don't fart on the fire, and it's like, okay, and then you let the chaos go, and then you go kind of rein it back. But anyway, key principles. So forest school should be about supportive risk taking as well. We're not here to like there are risks involved. We have fires. We use sharp tools. We're in a woodland where there's trip hazards everywhere, there's stingy things, there's poisony things, there's bitey things. We're not trying to wrap them up in cotton wool or remove the risks. We're trying to empower them to identify and deal with those risks themselves, and that involves giving them support to do so.
And that builds resilience.
Yeah, which again comes back into the holistic side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, this little kid at one of the sessions I did this summer got stung, I think, by a horsefly just below her eye.
Oh, got bitten. Nasty things, aren't they?
Yeah, well, she thought it was a wasp, but then it came up in a big hive, so I think it was a horsefly.
Right under the eye?
Right under the eye. And obviously got all the medical attention stuff. But she was so blooming resilient. I think she'd been coming every session for twice a week for the summer.
Yeah.
And we were like, do you want to go home? Like, it's fine if you do, because she was really upset and like her eye looked really sore. And she was like, no.
A trooper.
Yeah, absolute trooper. She sat with an ice pack. But I thought, like, if she hadn't already built up that resilience of coming, like, whatever the weather and stuff, would she have just gone, oh no, it hurts, I want to go home? Or would she have gone, no, actually I'm going to stay?
We had one years ago when before we were posh and we had a fence, and we used to put a rope boundary out. We used to give it to the kids to put out their boundary so that they had a control over where they could and couldn't go. And as these girls were putting out the rope, it was over yonder, they disturbed a wasp's nest and they got stung a lot. Like we're talking maybe 12 times each child. And I was pulling wasps out of their net, out of their collars, out of their shoes. They took it. They were like 6. Yeah. And we had to evacuate the woods because all of the wasps then decided they wanted to sting everything. And we can't administer any kind of treatment, and so it was phone call to the parents. Parents picked them up, very distressed. The next day, they were back in the woods, booked in for the next one, and I saw them and thought, blimey, that's like, you're brave. And guess what the first thing they wanted to do was?
Do the boundary again.
Do the boundary and go and look at where the wasp nest was.
Yeah.
And we sat there and we watched their flight path, and they worked out that all the wasps were flying completely in a different direction to where the main activity was. Yeah. So there was no risk to us. Yeah. And they worked that out. But they also saw that the flight path it went probably like 5 metres through our woods and then out into a part we don't use. And they made the boundary so it sat on one side, and they had learnt like a lot of valuable lessons through that, but had not been put off. They were inquisitive about it. They wanted to learn about what they could do to change it for the next time. It was priceless, so good. Did you just hear my belly grumble?
No.
Sorry.
I heard it earlier.
Did you? So forest school also should be run by qualified people. There's a qualification to demonstrate that you understand what forest school is, what it's trying to achieve, and to go through that you are safe to run forest school.
And if you want to find out about that, you can go back to season 3 and listen to Neil talking about
it. Yes, you can. And Neil was a wonderful trainer. I help Neil out with forest school training now, and it's such a privilege to see all these new folks coming in and seeing what they're going to do with it. It's a lovely course, and I very much enjoy running it with him. That involves, with the sort of being qualified, that also means that once you've done your qualification, it's not about, right, I can do forest school, and then you just go and do the same thing over and over and over. This is about developing practice and making sure that you're keeping things fresh for the kids and for yourselves. Just keeping it interesting. Things change, and we should embrace that. Yeah. And finally, the last of the 6 principles is learner focused, and we've touched on that previously. But this is about looking at what the individual is going to get out of sessions and treating them all as unique people, as we all are. When you're running a group, you sometimes know what you need to do to keep a group entertained and progressive, but within that group there's sometimes 20 kids that have all got their own story, they've all got their own needs and differences, and we sort of celebrate them and tailor everything down to what are they getting out of it, and if that becomes about my agenda, then that's not cool.
Yeah.
Right? You know, this is about them. So, God, we just waffled about forest school principles.
Yeah, but what we actually did was beautifully organically cover lots of the questions I already had.
Oh, did we? That's good, isn't it?
Because I was going to talk about the philosophy of being child-led and how that works, and we've
Okay,
already
done
discussed that. Yeah, but and we've also talked about the benefits of regular long-term attendance.
Done that, good.
But so I know we've just talked about how different each session is and keeping things fresh. But if you were going to say what a typical session looked like, what might it involve? Let's take not a toddler club. Let's take a home ed group because it's a long day.
Wow. So again, like home ed groups, they
or a holiday club. Both of those 6 hour.
Yeah. So the difference is that the holiday clubs, for some people, that actually isn't a long-term process.
No. So actually, let's talk about.
And this
home
is where
ed
you got to
then.
bend the rules a bit, because is that beneficial still?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is it more beneficial to come back more frequently? Absolutely.
But
you've got to also
be in the
appreciate
woods once rather than not at all. Yeah.
But you're working within funding, whether it comes from schools doing school groups, whether it comes from individuals. Life is expensive. We're running a business. We've got to make things viable. But you know, if we can help people to come to like one session, that is going to bring benefit.
Yeah.
And we've had anecdotally like just feedback from parents and staff who have sent some of their relatives, their like nephews, nieces, along to one session, and then they've seen what they're like at the end of that session, buzzing, and in a different way than they are if they come back from like school or a school group or whatever. So there is still definitely a value to coming along for.
And actually, we do find, don't we, that lots of our holiday club kids do come every week for the summer.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you can build into like the whole community thing again, and getting to know them as individuals. And by the end of it, you know, some of them are helping you to run your session because they are versed in what you do. But
a typical, let's say home ed, just
so
for the sake
a
of
home ed,
meeting all the principles.
All right. So again, it's open to the interpretation of the forest school team, the individuals running the session, who each have their own kind of unique approach to running stuff. But we would typically arrive at a sort of school day, so at 9 o'clock, and people come along, and we would have a sort of sit down in the morning where we would have a chat, see how everyone's doing, just have that off the cuff, relaxed chat like we're having now, and see if there's anything interesting they've been up to, any silly stories, jokes, whatever. Then we would get we would all as a group get a little fire going, get the kettles on, because we very much value our coffee as forest school leaders, and and the kids, you know, sometimes they do campfire cooking, so they'll need the fire going for that. But it's also a way of creating a start point where the focus is on something that is outside of them. It's not about them. I think some people can feel pressure to like start their day with, you know, you sat in a circle in a group and eyes are on you when you're talking maybe. And do you know what? Like getting a fire going is something that instantly puts people can talk to the fire, right? And people end up staying. You know, it's like when a fire's going, end up flame watching. But we would then, again, like we would see what the kids want to do. Now, this is the kind of thing that happens sort of half-termly. We'd have a chat about if there are any overarching aims, desires for the half-term. You know, one half-term, well, in fact, I went over a term or so, some years ago, we built that treehouse. The kids said, I asked them what they wanted to do, and they said, well we want to build a treehouse. Yeah. And so they then took on the planning of what it's going to look like, what materials they need, working out designs, doing the maths behind it, doing the calculations of how to order it. And over a period of weeks, we put up a treehouse, and we had many mistakes along the way, and we didn't order enough wood. We thought it was going to take shorter than it did. And we learnt lessons along the way, like... That's one of them, you know, quite a big projects.
Whereas at Totnes, my kids one term, I think they said, right, we're going to have a term which is all about campfire cooking.
Amazing.
So they voted. I was sat there at the end of the session one week. They went round and everyone suggested a different thing to cook the next week, and then everyone voted on which idea they actually liked. So although they might have said whatever, they might have gone, actually someone else has suggested something better. So then by vote they decide what they're going to cook the next week. Although I think the week I was there, someone suggested lasagna, and I saw the leaders' faces kind of pale as they thought, lasagna in a Dutch oven,
that'd be great.
Quite a big challenge.
That'd be amazing.
I think I don't know whether they did it or not.
I hope they did.
I can't remember whether they got outvoted. Debbie made pasta from scratch last week, didn't she? Which is amazing.
I was doing the Into the Wild sessions over the summer, which is for slightly older kids, we had a day where we baked honestly the best bread I've ever had in my life. This was like bread rolls cooked in a Dutch oven over an open fire, and they were stunning. They were properly stunning. We had a lovely veggie stew. We made ice cream from scratch using ice that Debbie had brought along.
And salt.
Like magic, like complete witchcraft. I did not know that was a thing. And so, I'm like constantly learning stuff.
Yeah.
But above all, it tasted rocking. Like, it was really nice. But yeah, we would, like some of these larger projects happen, but also like some kids just on any given day may not be feeling up to doing that. They might have another idea, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Depending on the sort of age of them, how long you've known them, what you've observed their capabilities and skills to be at a certain point, then you can kind of give different freedoms. I used to have a group where we would get the tools out from the shed and put them in the tool area that they had built at the beginning of every session, and I had skilled them up over a period of, like, we're talking months and months, to the point where my supervision of them became more or became less close, and I'd be happy to do something with someone else, sat around the fire while they were in the tool work area, using the tools in a completely safe and responsible way, and it would just take a real light touch from me. But whilst they were there, they were doing their own thing, and they made like carts out of bits of wood that they had hewed down, and they bored holes with like auger bits and created wheels and stuff, and just allowing their imagination to go, and I think that's an important one as well. But we do quite a lot of tool work. We do quite a lot of craft. There's quite a lot of art that goes on.
Yeah.
Kids are they a lot of the time making like their own charcoal and then creating paints and stuff. But throughout the day,
lots of team games going on.
Absolutely, lots of team games, and also really importantly, a lot of play. I'm not like a guru in all the sort of developmental sort of research behind play, but it's so important. Through play, they're consolidating their learning, the learning that they have done. They learn new ways to apply it, and it's fantastic for building communities and learning about each other.
I was just about to say those skills of being with other people, isn't it? 'Cause it's
Absolutely.
not just about communication, but play's a really good arena to practice like conflict resolution, isn't
100%,
it?
yeah. And I enjoy being able to stand back and give kids the opportunity to bring resolution to the conflicts themselves, because what is the point in us getting involved in every altercation before it's even developed? You need to give them space to express themselves, so that you can then, and this has happened countless times through Forest School. There's this kind of Facebook picture perfect the view of what Forest School is, when it's a lovely sunny day, the kids all sat on the fire, they're all singing songs, it's all happy, and sometimes that is actually what it looks like. There's the other end of the spectrum where there are times when kids disagree, and dealing with other people's emotions is challenging for people across the board sometimes. But when you're a kid and you're still learning about what is right, what is wrong, like how to help people when they're feeling stressed, how to negotiate stuff, how to comfort people, and what your boundaries are, and how you work with other people's boundaries, you've got to give them the chance to do that themselves. And then if things go wrong, or if they don't and they do manage to resolve it, having like a check-in with them to just make sure everything's all right, make sure they're feeling good about their day now,
with the resolution,
and identify what it is within that has worked, so you can build a platform to give them even more responsibility and freedom. It's a fantastic little arena for it, and being out in the woods away from everywhere, what a place to be able to do that in,
I
I remember at school But you're in the playground at lunchtime and having a lovely time, and anyone who's a parent or anyone who's had anything to do with kids knows full well that things can be absolutely lovely until they're not.
and
then something kicks off.
Yeah.
I remember at school that piercing flipping shriek of the whistle go off, and you knew that the teacher at one end of the playground is trying to stop something that's happening at the other end without any context, and I understand why, but being able to let it kind of play out a little bit, and again, if they're not being safe, not cool.
Yeah.
If they're not being kind to each other, not cool.
Yeah.
But if they're doing both those things and they're just having a disagreement, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I had two brothers arguing about the rules to capture the flag the other day, and I'll be honest, I don't know the rules myself, so they're kind of coming to me going, well, what are the rules? And I'm like, well, I actually don't know, guys, so why don't we talk about what you want the rules to be? And then it got quite heated, but they did eventually more or less come to a conclusion.
Yeah, and sometimes you've also got to kind of bite your tongue and go along with what someone else wants, that's another important part of being involved in society.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always like everything, but it's working out what you can accept and can't change, or what you can change because you can't. What's the thing? You got to accept what you can't change and change what you can't accept. Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Accept the things you can't change and change the things you can't accept.
Yeah.
But within that, we've got to be kind.
Yeah.
We've got to be safe.
Yeah.
And it happens on a minute scale every day.
Yeah.
Right?
But the great thing about forest school is that because they've got that freedom, if they really don't want to accept, the different version of the rules, they can choose not to play. They can choose to go and do something else, whereas they don't always have that freedom in other areas of their lives to just opt out.
Yeah. I think that there's so much about kids that it's easy to make the choices for them because it's sometimes just a more peaceful, straightforward approach. But what you're doing is you're crushing their future ability to make better choices for themselves.
And to negotiate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We have obviously already talked about some of the lovely memories you've got from the last decade at forest school, but are there any particular success stories where you've seen a real positive impact on a child, like over that long-term attendance, that you can think of?
Yes, many.
Obviously without breaking anyone's confidence.
No. I see faces. I'm really visual, and I'm not brilliant with names, but the minute you said that, I just, in my mind hole, like straight away, there's just loads of faces cropping up. Some absolutely amazing kids like that. That basically were my mates while I was running sessions. It was fantastic. But there's one of the longest attending kids that's been coming to forest school here started coming to my toddler group when he was about 2, about 2.5, maybe 3.
Tiny though.
Yeah. And at the time, toddler groups are great. I used to love running them, and we would have had 15 to 20 families coming along, and they'd come along once a week. We used to run several sessions a week, but they'd come along once a week for a couple of hours of a laugh in the woods, and they always were a right laugh. And I remember meeting this kid and his mum, and just going through the standard, what we do here. This is what forest school is, and I, at the time as well, because we were quite new to forest school, you found yourself having to almost like pitch it to people, because there were times where I would stand back and watch stuff happen, and so you're explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it, and it felt like I was always having to justify stuff. But actually, that was probably more on me, and not their expectation. It was my issue that I learned how to deal with. But he struggled at times. There was emotionally, to regulate himself was sometimes a struggle. Communication with other kids was sometimes a struggle. There were, one thing he always did was follow exactly what he wanted to do. And Mum was at times concerned about it. She found it difficult. I think there was a certain level of not embarrassment, but if their lad was having a tough time, and for want of a better phrase, like making a scene, I think she felt like all eyes were on her, and they really weren't.
No. But all of us as parents have been there at some point. But if it happens more regularly with your kid, then it starts 100%. To feel, yeah.
But it transpired that as the lad got a little older, he was diagnosed with autism, and that in some respects was helped to understand the sort of difficulties he was facing in being part of a group and getting engaged in what other people were doing, working with other kids. And there were times when Mum was quite stressed about it, and she needed a cuddle at days, and that was lovely. But we became really good mates, like myself and the lad, and myself and the mum. And over a period of time, I built a decent level of trust with him, and soon after he stopped coming to toddler group, he joined our home ed group at the time, and he was tiny. He was like, he would have been 5 years old, teeny-weeny lad, and but just full of energy, full of ambition, and full of personality, and he loved just being in the woods. And we played all sorts of games. We imagined stuff. We did sort of tool work. So much tool work. Like, loved being at the tools. But apart from anything, we just had a right laugh. We had a really good back and forth between us, and he was a proper joy to have in the woods. He still comes to our forest school, and he's like 10 years old now.
Yeah.
And within the woods, he's one of the most responsible, polite, friendly, informative kids that you could possibly meet. And he now has he works with one of our forest school leaders, Frank, and that now I've kind of the people he works with over the years has broadened, and he's got a much wider circle of folks who know him, who he's comfortable to be around, and he's just a joy to have in the woods. He's basically got his own business of carving stuff and selling it on to friends and family. Nice. And although we've been like 1 day a week of his learning journey, we've had an influence, and we've had a part to play in him having just a really cool life. You know? But there are lots of kids that stand out as for me it seems to go in like chapters. I look back at what we've done and what I've done since I've been here, and there are certain landmarks where your job might change or something, or you open a different site, or you build a new compost toilet or something, or you've got a certain group of people that stay with you for a while, and then there's a shift and it's a new group, and each one of them, within each little cohort, there's hundreds of little anecdotes that you can come up with stories, that stand out.
Lush. You might not be able to answer this, but if you had to choose one thing, what would be your favourite thing about forest school as a practitioner?
Oh, what? Oh, that's cruel, isn't it? Don't know. What's yours?
I think the letting go for both being yourself as a practitioner and for the kids being able to let go. I remember when I first started running sessions after training, and...
How long had you been coming to forest school when you did that? Because you were coming as a parent.
I came as a parent. I'd say I came as a parent. Hang on. Just the listener need to know my children's life.
That must have been like 2012.
I think I'd been coming for 5 or 6 years before I did the training as a parent. So I'd been attending sessions as a parent. So I knew what a session a good session should look like, and I knew what, inverted commas, a good forest school leader was. But still, after doing the training, I think coming 2 weeks later to run sessions, which maybe ideally I should have not run straight away, but it was, we had staffing constraints and that was the way it was. I still made that like fundamental rookie error of like trying to do way too much. And I remember you and Chris, one of our founders, and Tom, one of the directors, and a load of the parents saying, Hannah, you're doing too much in your sessions. But
again, you feel I had that in the early days as well, and possibly because you're part of that system through your education, where everything was laid out, controlled, and it was one thing after another, schedule, plan, that you feel obliged to do so because it gives you a sense of control.
And I think the colleagues had said it, but I think it was only when two of the parents that had also been coming as parents for 6 years said, Hannah, you've got to do less, you need to take a step back, and that was like the eye-opener for me. But that's what I love about it. I love the taking a step back, and maybe it looks like you're not doing anything as a practitioner, but you know that you're holding, to use a hippie term, you're holding that space for them.
You're allowed to say hippie, is that all right? You cater to a lot of hippies.
But you're kind of, that you've got that space, you're holding it for them, and it doesn't mean you won't do anything all day, but if there are times where it looks like you're just poking the fire and keeping an eye on what's going on, that doesn't mean you're not working.
I think I like being able to try new things, have fun. It is fun, and at the heart of everything should be a level of fun. And I don't see why this has to be such a difficult thing with certain things. There are some things that are seen as not fun activities. I mean, I've got to have directors meetings where we talk about capacities and finance and all that. I try and make it a laugh, be silly a little bit, I like having fun and being silly. I like being silly is really important, but being able to try new things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do, or you wouldn't feel empowered to do in other settings. I mean, I don't know, years ago I saw some video somewhere about smelting pewter, and thought that looks great. The next day I ordered the kit and turned up and had a quick go myself, wrote a risk assessment just so I can get that in the podcast. And
health and safety
is no accident. Health and safety is no accident, something to do with the Olympics, I don't know. We learnt over a period of a couple of weeks with the kids on what the best methods to do this were, because we didn't have all of the kit, in the middle of the woods, so we were smelting over a fire. There were people that were using cuttlefish bones to make moulds and clay, and some people get nice casts and whatnot. And I think we made some Play-Doh out of flour and water, bit of salt just for seasoning, and so the kids made a one lad had a snail shell in his bag that he had found at the beach, and it was a big snail shell, it was the biggest sea snail shell I've ever seen. And they sunk it into some Play-Doh and made a molten, they've got their pewter all molten. They made it a cast out of it and created a snail shell made out of shiny silver. But before it set, we put a screw head up into the snail shell. So that when it set, there was this pointy screw spiking out of it. And then we cut up a nice piece of wood and we screwed the snail shell onto its little plinth. And we created the Snail of the Week award. and each week the kids would, at the kind of end of session reflection, another part of forest school practice has been reflective, but we bring that to the kids as well, let them reflect on their day. And they were dishing it out to their peers based on what the kids had done on their day that had brought benefit to someone else's day, and whether it was someone being kind and helping them out with something, whether it's someone that just did something really cool, someone that said a funny joke, someone that had achieved something they'd been working at for a while. And this Snail of the Week award became a really important part of our sessions at the end. It was like a little routine, and we like everyone likes a bit of routine somewhere along the lines. And this was a really positive one until it stopped being the cool thing to get, and then they were melt it, burn it, and it got melted down, and the cycle began. I think it just reached the point where it had just run its course,
Okay.
and we didn't require it anymore.
Didn't need it anymore, yeah.
It was almost like they didn't need to be rewarded for just doing the things that
They were going to do anyway.
People do anyway,
Yeah.
and it was lovely that all these things that they were rewarding people on they were just part of the session and part of what is expected of people now.
Yeah.
But that was on them. That wasn't on me.
No.
You know, really nice.
Natural
So yeah,
progression.
being able to do like random things like that is great.
And have fun.
I also, and this is for me and just me only. I love running forest school sessions. It's great. I also love the peace and quiet that you get from the woods once the session's ended. Being able to sit in the woods and have that space to yourself to breathe and again have a bit of self-reflection on what's happened on the day, maybe plan the next day, but just sit and be inspired by what's around you and think of stuff to do in the future. Really important time, and we try to build that in where possible to all forest school leaders' time, to give them a bit of space to, after a session, you know, don't think, I've got to get on with this bit now and do that, do this, do that. Just sit, breathe, chill out, and just listen.
Yeah.
Nice little gap for the birds to sing.
I was about to say, as if on cue, they all got a bit louder just then. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you think we should have said about forest school that we haven't?
There's probably a lot of things. Like,
I was thinking, like, we're almost an hour. We probably could have talked for like 3. But
you can talk about forest school.
Till the cows come home.
You really can. And I'm sure that's the same for... Well, no, that's the same for a lot of subjects. We've scratched the surface a little bit.
We can scratch the surface,
you know,
more
within
another
it.
day.
We do forest school. We've been doing it for 10 years or more, and there are people that are doing their own forest schools in different ways all over the country, many of which we've trained. In fact, there are people that have come from Japan to train with us. Like, I'm not saying we've got like a global influence, but people are doing it all over, and it's really nice for me to think, and I'm sure Neil as well, who trains, like, to think of all of the benefits and positive experiences that people are having through what is actually quite a simple process. I think it's not complicated, but it's incredibly valuable.
Thanks for your time today. I know you're a busy man. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 another time with some other bits that we want to talk about. But we're just going to finish up. I always ask everyone some questions, but you've already answered my normal 3 when we did the spoon carving episode.
Right.
So your questions are, well, one's the same. What are you reading or listening to right now?
I'm not reading anything.
But listening to, because you're a music guy.
Yeah, I'm currently I'm going through another, like, I go through phases with music, and some of my favourite artists' albums or whatever I will listen to and sort of like dissect in the most enjoyable way, and then park it because I don't want to overdo it.
Yeah.
But I've recently been going through Robert Johnson's recording, because he only did one set of recordings, and I am loving them. I've been playing guitar for years, and I like playing slide guitar, and revisiting that sort of early blues slide for me is just a lovely thing. And Robert Johnson's recordings at the moment.
And lastly, what is your favourite thing to do outdoors in the winter months as we're approaching autumn and winter?
Carve spoons. Yeah, love it.
So you want to do something that keeps you moving?
No,
all right.
Sit by a fire, carve a spoon, and
happy days.
Yeah, I'll have a flask of coffee or something, and I'll keep warm that way. But it is quite an active thing, you know.
Yeah, no, I know.
But some of
the
axe
axing is
keeps you warm.
maybe not the spoony
but
bit.
Yeah, I do like to sit in the woods if it's hoofing down with rain or whatever, and just accept you're going to get wet, and just have that peaceful time to create stuff. And have a little positive outcome, and also sell it, because I like to make money.
Thanks so much for your time today, Nick.
Oh, thanks for talking to me.
It's been a pleasure.
Do you want me to play you out?
Yeah, go and play me out. The recording will cut out in 3 minutes' time, so you can play us out. Thanks. A massive thank you to Nick for joining me to talk about all things forest school related. I hope that you enjoyed listening to that episode. I certainly had lots of fun in the woods talking to Nick about forest school things, particularly as today is National Forest School Day. So happy Forest School Day, folks. That was the first episode in the 4th series of the Outdoors Group podcast. And I hope that you'll stick around over the next couple of months to see what else we've got up our sleeves. We've got some really exciting episodes that I can't wait to share with you. And whilst you're waiting for those, why not go back over the last 3 series to see if there's any episodes you've missed and catch up on those. If you're enjoying listening to the podcast, we would absolutely love it if you would rate the podcast, subscribe, share it with your friends, do all the things that you need to do, which means that more people will be able to find us and be able to listen to us talking about all things outdoor education related. And until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll be back in a fortnight.